All right, we are now live. We're waiting on a couple guests to join. Hello, everybody. This is Soapbox Heroes. We're live. We got a couple people that we are waiting to join us. Today, we are going to be talking about child support and family court. This is round two. Let me see. Okay, we have one person that's having some issues getting on. How you doing, Jabari Grant? We're about to touch on child support. We're waiting on a few people to join. How you doing, Sharon? If you guys are on early, if you could take a second to go and invite, just go down and hit that. All right. We're adding a few people. Hi, Alana. And we have Anthony with us so far. I am wonderful. How are you today?
Doing well. Thank you for asking.
All right. What about you, Anthony? How are you today?
I'm fine. How you doing today? Thanks for having me.
I'm wonderful. No doubt about it. We have a couple people, they're having issues with the software. Did you guys have a hard time logging in?
Yes.
You did?
No, I
Really?
didn't
What was
have.
going on?
The software wanted to update on my computer and it got stuck updating and it won't let me log in now.
Really? That's strange.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem at all. It logged right in, but I'm using my iPhone today because somewhere.
Yeah,
So
that might have something to do with it. All right. And like I said, everybody, already. Let me FE, if you're watching, contact Brian Payne. He's having a hard time getting on. And if you're not, I'm about to send you that message. And we'll get started with just us, and we'll let everybody else come join in.
okay, sounds good.
All right, everybody, we're talking child support and family court. Today, so far, we have two people with us, and we're going to have a few more people join here in a second. They're having technical difficulties, but we are going to go ahead and get to it. And so we're going to start off by introducing ourselves. So we'll start with you, Anthony. And the reason I pick you first is because it's called an active screen. And right now on my screen, you're the biggest picture. And so I always explain that because sometimes people say, why you pick me first?
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, my name is Anthony. I have a YouTube, a Facebook page called Child Support Reform USA, and it's kind of like my way of my own form of protest. And just try to put information out there. And I'm Anthony.
All right. And Alana, you want to introduce yourself?
Good evening. My name's Elena Haza. I blog at elenakhaza.com, and one of the things that I blog extensively about is child support reform and family court issues. The family courts and IVD courts in America need to be nuked. We've got to start over. It's a disaster, and our children are paying the price for it.
Okay. Well, let's start there. What do you think about the family court needs to be changed, Alana?
Everything. Judges should not be allowed to legislate from the bench. They should not be allowed to issue unconstitutional gag orders that prevent parents who suffered abuses in their courts from going public. Whoever's got the most money wins, and that needs to be changed because that is putting children in danger.
What do you think about that, Anthony? Do you think the family court needs to be reformed?
Yes, I believe the family court needs to be reformed. I believe that 50-50 shared parenting should be mandatory in all the United States, unless you have a child endangerment on your record or some type of, pedophilia, child abuse or something on your record. But I believe that it should be reformed. And I don't agree with her last statement because women usually win up to 90%. Last thing I read, 90% of family court cases. So I don't believe who has more money usually wins. If you look at the Jesse Williams, the actor, he just lost. He's paying They just upped his child support to $50,000 a month. And he's actually the breadwinner, $50,000 a month in child support, $50,000 a month in alimony. And the mother didn't even have a job, but she got the child. He's making $500,000 plus a month, and somehow she got the kids, and she's winning all, and she just won $100,000 a month. So I don't believe who has more money usually wins.
Okay, Alana, do you have something you want to add to that?
Well, celebrity situations are not the norm. We're talking about average Americans who are suffering here. And actually, it has been proven by the Leadership Council that 70% of the time when men go for custody, they win. So the stereotype that women are favored by the family court system is outdated, and that needs to change. I agree that in an ideal situation, 50-50 is probably what is best for the kids. But people who can cooperate and get along with each other are not the people who are fighting for custody in front of a judge. We're talking about abusers. We're talking about substance abusers. We're talking about people with mental illness. These are the people who dig in and fight to the finish over children because to them they view children as property. Children are something to be won. In those situations, the best interest of the child is not followed.
All right, you want to add to that, Anthony?
Yes. I don't agree with that either, just because a lot of people who have these substance abuse issues and things of that nature, a lot of time they're so worried about whatever substance that they're on, and they don't usually have the money to fight in court like that. So a lot of time people who are substance abuse, and I would like to see where she got 70% of men actually winning the cases, because that's not true. 90% of the time women win the cases. Even if it's, and you would think a celebrity would have a bigger chance of winning if he's making $500,000 a month and the ex-wife isn't making anything. So I don't see how, men are winning 70%, because that's I don't agree with that. I don't know where that came from.
Okay, Alana, where did you say that you got that stat from? I did hear her say she got the stat from somewhere in
That
particular.
information came straight from the Leadership Council, who has been investigating abusers being awarded custody. And, Anthony, I'm not a celebrity. I don't think you are. I don't think anybody listening to this podcast is a celebrity. We cannot hold up celebrity cases and use them for what is going on in America now. Those are unusual cases with people with very high incomes and very highly paid attorneys who are working that out. I'm talking about average families. I'm talking about protective parents who are losing custody to abusers. I'm talking about single parents who are being driven into poverty with their children. There's nothing celebrity about that.
Sure, go ahead. And 1 second, Anthony. We also have Brian here with us. Brian, do you want to tell everybody about yourself real fast?
Hold on, I'm still trying to get everything to work correctly real quick.
Okay, that's fine. If you could hear us, we're going to continue. So, Anthony, did you have something else that you wanted to say on that topic?
Yes, I was going to say, your average family court, yeah, where I got but I don't, the leadership council. I'm not too sure. I'm going with a government website. Um, your average American, the woman gets the children. I mean, when the child is born, they go straight to the woman. Even if the male is there, the father is there, and he signs the birth certificate, the mother gets the custody. I mean, that's in every state except for yeah, that's pretty much every state right there. So I just don't see how we're going to say that the family courts are not biased. I mean, we have to accept the fact that the family courts are biased. Abusers, if you can prove that a man has abused, see, a lot of time we have women who get upset with the guy. They've never called the police on the guy in 20 years, but now all of a sudden when divorce is going through, now he was an abuser. And I posted stuff like that on my page where examples where one woman got arrested for making false claims. So there are a lot of false claim cases. We have to be honest with that. I mean, if the guy was beating you so bad, why did you stay with him so long? And why didn't you call the police? But if you can prove, like if you have domestics, like if he has domestics or things that can be proven, then the courts are not just going to give him, he's going to have to go through all kinds of stuff, therapy. They got guardian ad litem. The guardian ad litem is going to come and interrogate him, go through his house, make sure everything is okay. He's going to have to go through so much if he actually has that on his record. But a lot of women go in there and just say that because that's what they pull. A lot of them pull that. Not all of them, but a lot of them usually pull that out and say, well, he's an abuser, just so they can have a one-up in court. And a lot of times, even if they can't prove it, nowadays these judges, they'll just go ahead and take their word for it because they don't want something to happen. If they let the child go, now all of a sudden they've been warned, and now that can become a problem. But a lot of time, these are people who are, putting in claims and don't have any proof to back it up. But if you have that on your record, like I already said, and they can see that on your record, you're not just about to walk out of there with the child. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to supervise visitation. You're going to go through a long process. I've seen guys with perfect records who still have supervised visitations. So I don't agree with that. Please tap your cue card as you.
Okay, Brian, we're talking about family court and whether it needs to be changed. Can you hear me? You have your microphone on mute.
Yes, sir. I'm good now. I got it.
Okay. Do you think that family court needs to be changed? And if so, what changes do you think need to be implemented? That's the question that we're on right now.
To be completely honest, family court doesn't need to be changed. People need to be educated on what exactly it is, like the child support agency. Every child support agency in every single state is under the executive branch of government. Courts and judges are strictly judicial branch. So we have Supreme Court case law that states that every child support agency in every single state violates the separation of powers doctrine of every state constitution in the United States Constitution. It's Supreme Court case law. It's already been ruled against. But if you don't know it, then they're going to steamroll you for it. There's never been a judge that has ever signed a child support order. It's impossible. It's a bought and paid for clerk by the agency.
Okay, so you're basically saying that child support is unconstitutional?
I'm not saying that. The Supreme Court said that. Supreme Court of Minnesota. I think the case was in 1996.
Okay, what do you think about that, Alana? Elena. I always call you Alana, and it is Elena, and I am so sorry. I'm sorry, Elena. What do you think about that?
That's okay. Now that was Brian who was talking about the unconstitutionality of the child support, the state agencies.
Yes.
Okay. I have to agree with him on that. The way it is set up through the Social Security Act, it is a cash cow for each separate state. The states do not cooperate with each other to collect. However, as far as child support being unconstitutional, don't children have rights? Children have a right to the love and support from both of their parents. Now, also to go back to what Anthony said about family courts being biased towards, against men, and that women always get the children. He did not want to accept my stat from the Leadership Council, but how about from the Center for Judicial Excellence? Women only make false, deliberate allegations of abuse 2% of the time. But the bias has gotten so extreme that most attorneys and mediators will tell you nowadays, do not disclose abuse because they're going to flip it and turn it against you as parental alienation. So whatever you want to say about the men, the women, the bottom line here is it's the children who are suffering under this current system. Children are being placed with abusers, children are being ripped away from loving parents, and children are not being supported. We have over $116 billion in child support arrears on the books now, and that's just for documented cases. The state that I live in, we run a 24 to 31% childhood poverty rate and over $5 billion in child support arrears. You can't say those figures aren't related.
Okay, now I do know that number with the 116 billion in all the country behind on child support. That's a real statistic. Only 2% of people filing false claims. It sounds to me like you're making out most fathers to be abusers when I can't agree with that, you know.
No, not most, but the ones who are. When they go for custody, they are awarded custody 70% of the time. This is documented by court records.
No, that's documented by false agencies. Like I'm looking at this right now on the internet, and one of those people who spew that number is a women's right organization, StopAbusersCampaign.com. So StopAbuseCampaign.com, who spews that. But right here, I'm looking at a Huffington Post right here, and it says 91% of the time women win custody. So it just depends. I guess you can argue over where you get the stats from and everything like that. But we can sit up here and talk about abusive men. But if you go to my page, you will see where there are a lot of women who are abusing their children. There was a story just the other week where a woman was so upset with her child that she ran a hot tub of hot water and put the child in the hot tub of hot water. So we can go back and forth about who's more abusive to these children, because on my page, there are tons of women who are killing these kids left and right. So I'm not going to sit up here and keep going back and forth about who's more abusive. I believe that 50-50 custody, if you don't have any abuse on your record, and I've never heard of a judge or a lawyer telling them, don't talk about the abuse. Everybody knows since the O.J. Simpson case, now whoever calls the police first, the other person is going to jail. And a lot of times that's the man. They don't even play with abuse anymore. Abuse is not to be, they don't even play with it anymore. So I don't know any lawyer in America who's going to know that their client is being abused by someone and going to tell them, hey, you shouldn't bring that up because you're going to look like parent alienation. So I can't agree with that. I've been in the family courts. I'm actually in family court right now battling to get my 9-year-old, and I have a lawyer to do so. So I'm very confident, and I'm just taking it one step at a time. But a lot of people, not every man is abused. I don't have any abuse on my record. I don't have any of that kind of stuff. And I still had to get a lawyer. Mind you, I paid child support every month, but I had to get a lawyer to get my visitation. So I can't agree with that.
You have anything you want to add, Elena? Elena?
Yeah, I would. Anthony, I agree with you. Having to get a lawyer to enforce your visitation is just as wrong as having to get a lawyer to enforce child support. That's my point here and the reason that I'm on this podcast tonight. You and I can trade, celebrity stories and true crime horror stories all night long. Those stories that make the news are not the average people. That's not you. That's not me. My story didn't make the news, but I'm owed over $30,000 in back child support. Can't get the state to do a damn thing about it while my ex-husband runs wild and free with a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. He can afford that. He can certainly afford to pay his child support. I agree with you. We can't go back and forth with the outrageous celebrity issues or the horrific true crime issues, because that's not the normal. The normal is kids are not being seen by their parents like they're supposed to be. Child support is not being paid like it's supposed to be. And the family court is running ramshod over Americans all over this country, and it's got to stop. There's no judicial oversight of the family courts, and that's got to stop.
Okay, Elena, let me ask you this. What should happen to somebody who actually skips from state to state to state so they can avoid child support? Brian, you
They
can
need
join
to
in
be
too.
put, well, that would, describe my personal situation. 4 state hops, 8 attempts of service across 2 states. It's ridiculous. When you have the means to state hop, you can legally avoid your child support obligation. And that needs to be stopped. Federal law in regards to, the interstate cases, or, as we call it, the state hoppers, has got to be enforced. The state where I live in has not referred a case for federal prosecution since 2009. Why is that? They cite the lack of resources. However, the state where I live sucked over $156 million out of one federal grants trust fund from the Social Security IVD-9 fund. You want to talk about lack of resources? I would love to have my hands on a fraction of that $156 million. It's absolutely ridiculous. So the state hoppers, or the ones working under the table jobs to avoid child support, they need to be put on probation style monitoring that they have to pay for. And if they're a known state hopper, slap an ankle bracelet on them so we can find them.
I think I lost audio.
The connection faded a little bit. Are you guys, can everybody hear?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm still here, Tyrone.
I can hear you.
Brian, can you hear? Elena, can you hear?
Yeah,
Yes, sir,
Tyrone,
I can hear you.
hear you.
Yes, Tyrone, I can hear you too.
What do you think about putting ankle bracelets on people that skip out or that you can't find for child support?
Okay, well, I mean, I've done a lot of research on different states. I live in Ohio, so in Ohio, you're not skipping anything. If you don't pay your child support, they can suspend your driver's license. So I don't know how many states you're going to be able to hop if you don't have a driver's license. They take the money directly out your check. So no matter where you go get a job at, I know guys in Ohio who tried to stay hop and they still took the money directly out their check when they got to the next state. I'm not particularly sure what state Alana lives in, but in Ohio, it's not going down like that. I'm actually a barber by trade, and I know guys who had their barber's license suspended for not paying child support, where they couldn't even work. When you're in a barbershop with 8, 10 people, you hear all different types of stories. I've seen guys who had their barber's license suspended by the state for not paying their child support. So I'm not sure how, I can't sit there and say for every state, but in Ohio, they're not putting up with that. And as for an ankle monitor, putting an ankle monitor on someone, I mean, I don't agree with someone being a total deadbeat. Like I said, I believe that it should be 50-50 custody. And as long as the father is getting the child 50% of the time and providing, I don't believe that he should have to pay anybody any cash. As long as he gets children, providing receipts, so that way if the mother decides to say he hasn't been providing anything, if he keeps his receipt, he should be able to go to the courthouse when that time comes and be able to show that he's provided for the children. But I don't believe that I should have to pay for sports things, pay for clothes, pay for this, pay for food when they're at my house, and still help somebody else pay their bills. So, but I do believe that if you are a total deadbeat and you're at the point where you don't want to pay, I do believe there should be repercussions. But I don't know about putting an ankle monitor on one. I don't agree with that.
Tyrone,
Hey,
can I
Brian.
jump back in?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, Anthony, I don't know if you can see this piece of paper
What up,
because
though?
I'm having to do this on my phone right here. But this is the report to Congress by the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement. Arrears in your state currently stand at $4,876,911,477. So whatever Ohio's doing, it's working about as well as what Florida's doing because our arrears are over $5 billion. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. These are children who are doing without.
All right,
Yeah.
everybody. 1 second. We have another guest with us. We have Dwayne, and he just hopped on. And we're waiting for another group. We're waiting for Child Support You Owe It, Pay It. And I don't know if she's having issues getting in, but as soon as she gets in, I'm sure she'll jump on. Dwayne, the question at hand is, Elena said that people that don't pay child support or skip from state to state should have ankle monitors placed on them so you know where they are at all times so they can't skip out. What do you think about placing ankle monitors on people so they don't skip on child support?
Personally, I think that's a waste of the state's money. That is a waste of the state's money. I believe that we are wasting money in several ways anyway, and to do something like that, I mean, if we're talking about dead children, they shouldn't be allowed. Can you guys hear me okay? Still there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, so deadbeat parents shouldn't waste the state's money. You don't need the court system to actually have your children, nor do I want to be involved in raising your children. So at that point, I think that's just too much too soon. When you think about it, most people that are filing child support cases, I mean, I don't know what percentage of them are fraudulent or how many people are just living off the child's what's supposed to be supplemental for the child. But most times, these deadbeat dads aren't making enough money to support the kid anyway. People are out here fighting over, $75 a week checks or some stupid shit like that, and it doesn't really do much for the child anyway. So, to waste the state's money to do something more, I don't think that is the fix.
And I would like to piggyback off of that if I could. We're talking about putting ankle monitors on men, right? But if you look at a lot of these women, not all of them, but a good portion of them, when they're in a financial bind and they're having issues, they get Section 8, welfare. There's all kind of assistance they get. But if a man doesn't have the money, he's automatically a deadbeat. So I can't agree with that. When a man is having a hard time, he can't go down there and get Section 8 to pay his rent. He can't go down there and get welfare checks and food stamps. He can't do that. So I don't understand how, a lot of these fathers, when they get behind $2,500 in child support, they take their passport. But if a woman's on Section 8 and welfare, they don't take her passport. So it's like, to me, there's a real high double standard here. If you're so broke that you're on Section 8 and welfare, you shouldn't have a passport either. No vacation for you. But if a father falls behind just $2,500 in child support, his passport is taken, his income tax check is taken. But these women, they can be on welfare in Section 8, they still get an income tax check, and they still get to keep their passport. So there's a double standard going on here.
I'd like to jump in on that because it goes much deeper than that. When a woman has a child, she has the right to get an abortion. She has to go to the fire department, police station, or hospital and not notify the hospital and be completely absolved of all financial responsibility for that child.
Oh, shit.
But a man
Yeah.
is forced to pay regardless. Regardless, whether he's the father or not in some cases, he has to pay, period. So how are women able to have these more rights than men, and men are just left holding the bag? You know, I don't understand, you know,
I
the
agree
rights that women have.
I
Yeah, they
agree
call
with
it
you
the
that
right to
it's
they call it the right
gender
to
screwed
choose.
up. I agree that it's unfair gender wise, but at the same note, I think there should be something psychologically done with the parents that are filing these types of things. And child support should not be an ongoing thing until a child is of adult age. There should be ongoing things that are like to grow the family, to help with reunification, to do things of that nature so that they don't have to be continually going after someone financially. You know what I'm saying? Like for you to be financially for you to owe money in child support makes you a criminal. And that to me just seems odd. That's like your personal domestic stuff, whatever was going on at your home, and now everybody else is involved because there's some financial background. You could be locked away in prison. And I don't think prison is no. I don't think prison is the solution for anything.
Elena, do you want to add anything?
Oh, sure. If, owing child support is a crime and makes you a criminal, then how come my ex is not in jail? How come the people who owe all this money to their children are not in jail? I mean,
They don't know it.
you want this to be an issue between men and women, but it is not about men and women. It is about children who are doing without. I think, Anthony, a couple statements ago, you mentioned, you were talking about 50-50 and talking about how you don't think you should have to pay for sports. You don't want your kid to be able to play sports?
No, what I
Let me
said
tell you
was
something.
I gotta correct you
I've
there.
got two older teens, and them playing sports just about killed me financially. It is very expensive. Or you have no intentions of contributing to a healthy activity that is good for your children because you thinking somehow you're benefiting someone other than them?
Well,
It's about the kids.
okay, well, you must have didn't hear me correctly. But what I said was, if I'm paying child support, I'm also expected to pay for sports. If I'm paying for sports, paying for clothes, paying for shoes, paying for food when they're at my house, paying for everything, I don't believe I should have to pay child support. That's what I said.
No,
I never
hell no.
said,
I don't think so either. That's stupid. That happened.
No.
yeah, I never said that I didn't want to pay for. You must have didn't. I know it was like a little, it's messing up a little bit or whatever. But that's not exactly what I said. Anyone who's watching
Okay.
this,
Well, thank you for
okay,
clarifying that.
you're fine.
Because, those are very important, very healthy activities for kids. But, that cost should not be borne by only one parent. It should be split. Because especially when you have kids who are playing select and what have you, oh my God, it gets expensive. Trust me, you're going to
Yeah,
find out when
It
yours
gets
gets a little
pricey.
older.
softball. My daughter plays softball, and I pay for all that. But let's talk about how these women can get Section 8 food stamps and everything else when they're broke and they're not put in jail for not having any money. They get assistance and help. But when a man is in a financial bind, he's all of a sudden he's a deadbeat, and he can be threatened with jail when he doesn't have money. But women can go down to the welfare office and get assistance, cash assistance, food stamp assistance, Section 8. So how is that right?
Uh, you're going to have to explain that to me too, because I have never gotten assistance for anything. And
Let's
there's
not
been
talk
a
about
couple
you.
of years
Let's
when
not
things
just talk
were
about
so
you.
bad, I applied for it and they just laughed in my face. But yet I was working with men who did not have custody of their children, but were getting food stamps for them.
You go to your particular situation. Let's talk about on the average here and what's going on in America. You keep going to your particular situation, and your situation may be different. You might not have got it, but we know that majority of these people who are getting food stamps and stuff like that, they are mothers. And in Section 8, they are mothers. So let's talk about those women and how they
Well,
get to keep their
okay,
passport.
let me give you another stat for you to refute. This one's from the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, 48% of single mothers are below the federal poverty threshold directly because of unpaid child support versus 17% of single fathers. So, yeah, someone who's below the federal poverty threshold, I'll not only give them food stamps, I'll give them all the food I've got in my damn cupboard right now because they need it. Because the federal poverty threshold is it's bad.
Go ahead, Brian.
Can I clarify something real quick? Child support was created under Title 4D of the Social Security Act to recover welfare distributed from Title 4A. That welfare is just a loan, okay? Let's get it real. It's just a grant granted by the state. That's it. So the way we challenge child support, which we just got somebody out of jail, I think it was yesterday or the day before. The way we challenge it is the same way we challenge any other debt. We demand proof of claim. Show me the contract where we took out that loan. It doesn't exist. It's not our contract. It's the mother's contract. It's the mother's signature. She's the one that took out that loan, not us. We're responsible for a loan we never took out.
So Brian, essentially you're
It's
saying,
as simple as that.
so essentially you're saying that child support is basically, it's a contract, and if the man never signs the contract, then he shouldn't be on the hook for any child support.
Not responsible for it by law, and children are regarded in the eyes of the law as property. You want your children back, you claim your property, just like you would claim your car, you claim a boat, you claim your house. They're property. You claim your
Yeah,
children.
you don't pay for
That's
your
what
car,
it
it
is.
gets repossessed.
I
You don't
agree.
pay for your
Claim your
kids,
property.
they end up living in poverty.
All right, Brian.
You know that. I mean, I'm just real. You know that's all that it is they are property. I know it's kind of wrong morally to view children as property, but since when is morality? I don't care about that. You know, it's me. I'm fighting for a boat. That's what I look at it. You know, and in the law, when I step in a courtroom, that's my mentality. There's no feelings involved with it. You know, we just had a guy that was arrested for a warrant, sentenced 6 months in jail. He got him out in 3 days. Hey, just had finally a proof of claim. Challenge. We just did a debt validation. That's it. He's released. No problem.
All right, anybody
You
have
have
any?
no idea what's going on.
Your connection is still kind of bad, Brian. So we get the gist of what you're saying, but you're kind of fading off at the tail end.
Yeah, like he logged out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do anybody have anything they want to add to that point?
Yeah, I would
Well,
like to.
Tyrone, go ahead.
Okay, I would like that. I would like to kind of piggyback off of something that Brian had talked about just a second ago, and I would like to ask Elena about this. And you know, when we talk about men's and women's rights, women have the right to choose. Just like Brian said, you know, they got these things called baby boxes where the woman can take the baby, stick them in the baby box, and they get to walk away scot free. No child support payments, no one harassing them, no one calling them a deadbeat. Matter of fact, when I posted this on my page, I had a lot of women coming over on my page commenting, talking about, oh, she's overwhelmed when she leaves her kid at the hospital or leaves her kid in a baby box or at the fire department. So why is it okay for a woman to walk away from the child and it's kind of like a double standard where, you know, she's overwhelmed or she's giving the child a chance to have a better life? But if a man wants to walk away because he doesn't want to deal, he knows he can't afford it, he doesn't want to deal with the particular woman, even though he slept with her. I'm not, you know, he did make that choice, but he decides he does not want to deal with this particular woman. If he walks away, he's a deadbeat, he's a criminal, he deserves an ankle monitor. So how come a woman can just have the right to choose and just walk away, sticking a baby in a baby box and walk away, and that's okay, but a man can't do the same thing?
Exactly right. And that's
And
not equal
Anthony, how
protection
many
under the law.
babies a year get stuck in a baby box?
I mean, look, all I know is this. Arizona in 1 month had 6 stuck in the baby box. They was calling it a record high. I mean, Indiana has the baby boxes going on. I've seen quite a few. I posted them on my page. So we can go all day about how many, but it happens. How many kids go to the get left at the hospital? How many kids get left at at the firefighters?
Fire station.
Firefighters. Yeah. So we can go on and on how many it does, but it happens in this society. It's okay. So how come a man can't do the same thing? Like, do you think a man should be able to make the same choice?
They do it every day.
No, but they're
Over
called
11
deadbeats.
million child support cases in America owed that $116 billion arrears.
Yeah, but women aren't. When they drop the kid off in the baby box, they don't have to pay child support. Or if they decide to have an abortion, they don't have to. They have the right to choose. How come? Is it okay? And why is it okay for a man to have the right to choose? Do you agree a man should have the right to choose?
Now, are you speaking specifically of one-night stands, non-committed relationships, or marriages that lasted, 10, 15, 20 years? The children were planned and wanted, and then dad takes off.
Well, that's
matter.
different.
How is that different? How is that different? Most
Because
of the child support cases in America are child support cases due to divorce, and those marriages lasted an average of 11 years. My children were planned, and I
70%.
damn sure didn't plan for them to be left alone with me.
Wait, hold on, you guys.
70%.
Hold on 1 second. Brian, was there something that you wanted to add?
I don't really see why it matters. Women have the choice to walk away. Either men should have the same choice, or the women should have their rights stripped. There has to be an equal. That's what equal protection under the law is. And if it's not equal protection under the law, then it's discrimination based on gender. That's what it is. There's no two ways about it. So either way, you either have to give men rights or take women's rights away.
Anybody have anything they want to add?
Well, how about everybody who's having all these one-night stands producing babies use some damn birth control?
I mean, that sounds good, but a lot of these women who are having these one night stands, they're getting Section 8 welfare and everything else. So that's easy to be said, but I just want to know: does Elena believe that a man should have the right to choose just like a woman does? Like, does she believe in real equality? Because I'm starting to notice a lot of people don't really believe in real equality. They say they believe in equality, but they don't really believe in equality. So
men certainly have the right to use birth control, and they also have the right to keep it in their pants and not produce any unwanted children.
And women have the right to keep their legs closed and stay off their backs, but they don't do it either. So
exactly.
I mean, that's
exactly. And again, we're back to this is between men and women, and children are the collateral damage, which is wrong. The children didn't ask to be here. The children need to be taken care of. They deserve to be taken care of.
Okay, we're gonna start moving on into some court issues, and I got a couple questions that have come to me. You have something else you want to say, Anthony?
Oh no, I'm listening.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody has everything that they have to say. Make sure you guys all get it out. And we have one more person that's going to add. Dwayne had to leave and go to a meeting, but we have one more person that's going to add as well, and she's going to pop in here soon. The question that I got is, when the two parents go to court, what should happen to the parent? Well, what should happen if a parent quits their job in order to receive more child support? What should happen to that parent, Brian?
Well, really, that's up to them. But here's the thing. It's not a court. It's not a court. It's an administrative hearing with a private business. And business is pimping people's kids out to them. That, at the end of the day, that's all it is. You can look it up at 45 CFR 302.34. Or no, 42 USC 654.3. It's a single and separate unit. It's not part of the courts. It's not part of the government. And they clearly tell you that. But if so you're all these courts are just using the benefit of the best interest of the child as a ploy to get money off of you. They make $12 off every dollar they steal from you.
And so you're saying that there's no such thing as a child support court. It's not actually a court.
There's never been a child support court. Never. It doesn't exist. Under the executive branch of government, it can't exist. A judge cannot come over, a judicial judge cannot come over to the executive branch child support agency and actually put out his official duties. There's no way. It's a violation of the separation of powers, which the Minnesota Supreme Court upheld. You know, they proved that. That's why it's unconstitutional. That's the exact ruling that the Minnesota Supreme Court put out. They made it very clear that it violates the separation of powers. A member from one branch may not execute their duties in another. It's impossible. So under that 45 CFR 302.34 contract that he's under, he goes from a judge to a bought and paid for clerk of the agency. Okay, so when he's paid under that contract, he has a financial interest in every single case. And under that contract, they also lose their judicial immunity and can be sued in their private capacity.
Okay. And basically to the question of if somebody quits their job when they're going right before they go to court for child support, you're saying that's completely up to them.
That's completely up to them. You know, what I tell my children is, don't have sex unless you want to be a single parent. You know, I only have sons, but if I had a daughter, that's exactly what I would tell her. Do not have sex unless you plan to be a single parent and raise that baby all by yourself.
Okay. Elena, what do you think about that? What do you think about a parent that quits their job right before they go to court so they could try to receive more money in child support?
Well, I'd just like to say that as far as the legal things, I agree with Brian 100%. It's nothing but a freaking cash cow for the states that is hiding under legal immunity. It's ridiculous. But as far as people who quit their job to try and get more money out of the other parent, or to try and get out of giving the parent money that they would actually owe, they need their fannies handed to them on a platter. I mean, all that is legally screwing over your kids, and it's wrong. Again, this is supposed to be about the kids.
What do you think about that, Anthony? Go ahead, Anthony.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, well, you know, I don't agree with something like that, but that's kind of like a hard one to prove, you know, because you know the courts doesn't. If a man loses his job or quits his job, if he already has an order in, and I'm going off the state of Ohio here, if he already has an order in, the state is going to ask him why did he lose his job. So if he can't prove that he was fired, they're going to keep the same. They're going to keep the same hourly rate that he was making. He's going to keep that, especially if he quits the job. So in Ohio, that doesn't work. And you know, when it comes to you know, the it not being part of the government, I hear a lot of guys like Brian say that all the time. But you know, a lot of these guys, you know, I'm not saying Brian, I'm not sure about him. I mean, he seems like he's getting stuff done. But a lot of time when people say all this stuff, we can go on and on how it's not part of the system. But there's a lot of people going to jail, a lot of money owed. So once you sign that contract and you sign in with them, because in Ohio, what they do is when you have the child, they invite you down to the child support agency. Now, me personally, if I had to go through that again, I wouldn't show up. That's just me, you know. But what they do is they invite you down there, and you feel like you're under threat. So you go down there, and before you know it, you're basically signing yourself up. That's how it works in Ohio. You basically sign yourself up without knowing it. But knowing what I know now, I wouldn't sign the birth certificate, and I wouldn't show up at the child support agency. They would have to come and carry me to the child support agency. And people might think, well, you know, that's deadbeatish. No, I don't want anything to do with them. I will take care of my kids myself. And I think a lot of men need to start taking that route.
Is
Exactly.
there
Like
any
those
Care for your kids in private.
is there any legal ramifications if you decide not to go down and sign the papers?
Well, I don't know anybody in Ohio who's actually taken that route yet, so I can't really answer that. I'm just after going through it two times, and I actually have shared parenting of my two oldest kids. So and the mother decided to get rid of the child support, and we're getting along just fine. So I've been blessed on that end. But I don't know anybody personally who's taken that route. But if I ever had to go through that route again, that's what I would do.
Okay. Elena, let me ask you this. We're asking a
Hmm.
whole bunch of questions that might prove to be frivolous. What needs to be done to fix family court? Let's just get to the in depth. What needs to be done to fix it?
They need immediate oversight of the judiciary. They need to quit issuing unconstitutional gag orders against parents, and they need training in high conflict situations, domestic violence cases. These judges aren't trained. They're just legislating from the bench based off their own opinions, whether they like you or not.
Okay. What about you, Anthony?
I would say that I believe that there should be 50-50 custody right off the top. Because I feel like if there was 50-50 custody, without 50-50, if you don't want to do 50-50 custody, then you don't get child support. I feel like before any money is taken from anyone, and if we're going to be shoved into the child support system, the father should have 50-50 custody right from the beginning. Because as long as he's not a proven abuser or touching children or child abuse or child endangerment, as long as he's not a proven, not hearsay, a proven domestic violence or any of that stuff, you should be able to get 50-50 custody right away. Because in the state of Ohio, they have this thing called Local Rule 19. And in that local rule, you only get your children every other weekend. So that's 4 days a month. So we're talking about everything's best for the children here. 4 days a month you get them, and then you also can get them for 3 hours on a Wednesday. So 3 hours on a Wednesday, 4 months, 4 weeks in a month. That's 12 hours. So you're basically getting your children for 4 days, 4.5 days throughout the whole month. I don't see how that is good for a child to only see his children, to see his father 4.5 days a month. And then you get every other holiday. So switch on holidays. So I don't agree with if we're talking about what's best for the children, there should be 50-50 custody in every state, because I know Delaware started doing this. The money on that child support card should be only to the child. You shouldn't be spending on nothing else. Only to the child. And it should be just like when you use your debit card or your credit card on your smartphone, you can see where the money's going. When you purchase something, you'll get the email that says money spent here. Fathers who's paid this child support should get a email like shoes bought, clothes bought, this is bought. We should know where the money's going. Even though the money goes to our child, it's still out of our pocket. So I believe there should be some type of oversight over where this money is getting spent. You shouldn't be able to go get clothes, for yourself, your fingernails done, purchasing hair extensions, or any of that kind of stuff should not be able to be purchased with the child support card. So that's what I think needs to be changed.
All right, Brian, what do you think needs to be changed? And we have somebody new. Hold on, before we go to you, Brian, we're going to come to you. Would you like to introduce yourself and let us know who you are?
Hi, my name is Destiny.
Hello, Destiny. Okay, and I'm going to come to you with the same question, Destiny. So just listen to the question that I give Brian, and we'll swing it around to you, and you'll be right on time.
Okay.
Brian, what is what changes are needed in family court to make it better, in your opinion?
Well, was that question directed at me, Tyrone?
Yes.
The main thing would be removing the financial incentives to states. The state receives financial incentives for it. You remove those incentives, you remove their paycheck. You remove the entire reason for them not to give 50-50 custody because they're not being paid for it. That's why you only see a certain percentage of all these cases that have 50-50 shared parenting because they don't profit from 50-50 shared parenting. No child support, no profit. And that's how it is. Participation in the child support program is voluntary to every state. The state voluntarily chooses to participate in that program as a condition of federal funding. That's the only reason that you even have a child support program. It's voluntary for states, but it's not voluntary for you? No. It's definitely voluntary for you, and you can choose to opt out at any time.
Okay.
But I believe by removing those financial incentives, you take away that paycheck, and you're going to automatically see way more 50-50 custody cases.
Okay, Destiny. Let me ask you, and if you have anything that you want to add or rebut to what he said, anybody is welcome. But Destiny, what changes do you think need to be made in family court to make it better, or do you think it's already fine the way that it is?
I'm trying to figure out if Brian is saying what is true, then removing that, how is a parent supposed to go about obtaining any type of financial support if the courts are taken out? That means hiring an attorney, which costs money, correct? So like me, in my situation, I have an attorney. I have an attorney who actually used to be the Deputy Attorney General of the Child Support Division of the state of Texas. I, however, have a tri-state case. There's 3 states involved in my case. I was told the other day when I called the Attorney General's office after a non-payment 3 times or 3 weeks, I got 2 payments. I got 2 payments 1 week and then the next week, and then they stopped. I knew he quit. So I tried to call the Attorney General's office and ask them, hey, I was just wondering if you could contact the other state to find out if he still has a job. And what they told me was because I have an attorney, they could not talk to me, that my attorney had to contact them, which then means me calling my attorney, paying my attorney $375 an hour to contact the state in order for her to get an answer as to whether or not he quit his job because I have not received payment. So removing the courts from the situation, how does that help anybody?
I can tell you why they chose not to talk to you. Because when you hired an attorney, you made yourself a ward of the court. You told the court, when you hired that attorney, you told them that you were enfeebled, inferior, ignorant, and could not defend yourself. That's what an attorney is.
Okay, so with my case being now 12 years old, and the very first payments that I've received, she was able to find them and get 2 payments for me, and I represented myself in court. He had an attorney because he was winning $1.5 million in a lawsuit. So he had hired an attorney. So, and I could not afford an attorney at the time, you know. So how was I ignorant in hiring an attorney when he skated for 12 years on moving from state to state to state, and my attorney finally finding him?
The entire Bar Association is under contract with the Child Support Agency. The Bar Association is the one who wrote Title 42 of the United States Code. The Bar Association's under contract. They don't work for you. They work for the agency. And you can sue your attorney and get a refund plus damages for them not disclosing that information to you. And I'd love to assist you in that.
So her
I do it for free.
Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General for the Child Support Division, you're recommending that I sue her?
Sure am. And I
Okay,
would assist you in that completely for free.
I would like to hop in on here off of something that Brian said now, because I was about to say the same thing. The lawyers are the bar. The bar writes these laws. So, when it goes back to the family court situation, another reason why you will never see these courts just give us 50-50 custody out the gate to the fathers like they're supposed to is because these lawyers turn around and not only do they make the money, the courts and everybody make the money off the child support, but then they make money off of the fathers who have to get the lawyers to battle and the mothers who sometimes hire lawyers because when you're trying to get in Ohio, when you're trying to get child support, the mother gets a free lawyer from the agency, but a father doesn't get a free lawyer. That's another subject. But when you go to the family court, the mother has to hire a lawyer too. So before you know it, these lawyers get to make more money off not giving the 50-50 or any visitation for that matter to the father, because then once you're locked in the child support system, you have to hire a lawyer to fight for your visitation or your shared parent or whatever you're going for. So that's another reason why these courts will not give you 50-50 custody or any kind of custody to the father or visitations because they want you to hire that lawyer and try to fight. And if you go in there by yourself, I'm not saying you can't win, but you better be doing your reading. You better be paying attention to what you're writing and everything you're doing. Because if you go in there by yourself, if the mother has a lawyer, you're going to lose. So a lot of times you end up having to hire a lawyer.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything? Destiny, I see you kind of shaking your head a little bit. Feel free to add whatever you'd like.
Well, he had an attorney and he lost. So that's my point in that. And I obtained full custody of all 4 children. And we saw them, let's see here, we went to court. Originally, we were divorced in 2002. And he saw the kids maybe 4 times between 2002 and 2010. Then he hired an attorney in 2010 and he saw the kids maybe 2 or 3 times and he has not seen my children since 2007, 2008. 2008.
Did you offer him 50-50 custody?
Oh, hell no. He didn't have a job. He didn't have a job.
But you're trying to get child support from him. I don't understand why.
Absolutely, he has a job. He won $1.5 million, and I got 30 grand, and he was in arrears 58.
But if he doesn't, if he's a millionaire, then why can't he have 50-50 custody?
Because he lost the money. That's why. In 2 years.
Because he has no money, he can't get 50-50 custody. So what is more important? Time with
If
the
he
children
honestly,
or money?
if he honestly wants to come and fight me in court for 50-50, I've been telling him that for 7 years.
Why fight you in court though? Why does he have to spend money and fight you in court? Why can't you just give 50-50
I
custody?
bought him a plane ticket to come and see my son 3 years ago, and he didn't show up. He doesn't want to be involved.
I'm just going to say this. I feel like when the money gets involved, I'm not making excuses for any of these guys. But I will say this. When the money starts getting involved, a lot of guys get bitter. And that's when, a lot of guys, when they walk away from these situations, a lot of time, a lot of men are happy to walk away from these situations. Not all, but sometimes they are. But, when you start getting in a man's pocket and talking about he owes me all this money, most men don't feel like we owe you anything. Like, I don't feel like I owe anyone anything. I owe my kids to take care of my kids. I don't owe a woman anything. Like, I owe my kids to take care of them. And as long as I'm getting my custody and my visitations, I'm going to take care of my child. So I feel like I don't understand how just because he doesn't have any money, why you can't just give him 50-50. Me and my kid's mother, we agreed to do 50-50 shared parenting. We went down there. We signed paperwork. We got it over with. Everything's worked out sweet. She was getting child support before then. She decided to get rid of it. We didn't have to battle in court for it. She decided to give me the 50-50 custody. We agreed upon it. So I don't understand why you can't just agree upon it. And I guarantee you, most fathers out here, if you can get these people out of your pocket, they will take the 50-50 custody. So you got to decide what you want sometimes. The money or your child's father in their life. Because I guarantee you, most men in this society will gladly take the 50-50 custody if they can get people out of their pockets. That's just my opinion.
Anybody want to expand on that?
Anthony, it sounds
Okay.
like to me that Destiny, I'm sorry, is that your name? Destiny?
Yeah. Yes.
Sounds to her situation has been going on since 2008, is what I heard. It is cutting out a little bit. Her ex-husband, they've got 4 children. He won $1.5 million in a suit, and it's 10 years later, and he's broke on his butt. That in and of itself shows an extreme irresponsibility. I'm supposed to hand over 4 children 50% of the time to someone who can't manage, 2 nickels to rub together? Why didn't he,
And
when he won that money, why didn't he catch up his child support obligation?
She said she
This
got
is
30,000.
someone who did not want to be involved, made no provisions for his children out of a huge monetary award that he got, and is now flat broke.
can I
Okay,
add that he actually went broke after a year?
So he
Okay,
managed
so
to burn through that money in a year and not do a damn thing for his children.
no, he
1
gave
year.
her 30. He gave her $30,000. You must have missed that point. But here goes my whole thing. Now, just because somebody is not good with finances, you have lottery winners who get 50,000, 50 million, and all kind of money, and they blow through that lottery money. So just because someone is financially irresponsible does not make them a bad father. See, there's women out here who are on Section 8 welfare. They're not good with money, but you don't hear people saying, well, let's just take the kid away because she's on welfare and she's not financially. I mean, come on, that makes no sense. What's best for the child is the father to be in the child's life, and that is what everybody's supposed to be working for. It's not just about money. The most important thing to a child, if your kid is if your kid is not going to eat because you don't have enough money and because the child support is not coming, maybe the child should not be with you. Maybe the child shouldn't be with you then. Maybe he should be with the father then. If you can't pay for food in the household. So I can't agree with that. I can't agree with that. Just because a man is not good with finances. I mean, you give a guy that kind of money, or anyone for that kind of money. I've seen women. I know a woman whose father died and she got an inheritance and she blew through it. She got men who got with her. She was spending money on men, got her breasts done, and blew through that money. So I've seen that before, and she still has her kids, and no one's saying she's a bad mother. And I'm not going to put no names on the internet, but anyone from my town knows who I'm talking about.
Well, here's the thing, Anthony. Here's the thing. We don't know Destiny's whole story, but the part of it that we know shows an adult human being who is extremely irresponsible. This guy could be on drugs. He could be a drunk. We don't know. But so you're saying that just because someone's broke or that they don't want to pay child support, that we should hand our children over to them 50% of the time. In an ideal situation, 50-50 works. Most situations are not ideal. When you have alcoholism, drug abuse, mental illness, abuse
You say
of
most.
children,
You say
you
most.
can't do 50-50. But we don't
But
know
you're
her whole
supposed to
story,
sleep
but
with
you're
them.
judging her because she doesn't want to hand her kids over to somebody who's broke.
Okay. Well, you said most situations. I don't believe most situations dads are drunks and on drugs. And second off, you go straight to assuming that this man is possibly on drugs or whatever. How do we know Destiny's not on anything? Like, I mean,
We
I'm
don't.
not trying to be. Look, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying I'm not assuming that about you. And to me, I feel like
But
that's
you're
what she
assuming
just
that
did.
about him. You're assuming things about him.
That's what she did. She said he could be on drugs or alcohol. And I mean, I don't.
He's not. I'll say that he's not. He's not.
Okay, well, thank you for being honest. Thank you for being
What
At the
he
end
honest.
of
is,
at
what he is an extremely bitter man that left a wife who had a job when he didn't work for 7 years and 4 kids together, and now he has 11.
Okay.
11 kids and 5 babies' moms.
So if you knew he didn't have a job for all that time, why would you continue to have children with him?
All
I mean,
4 of my children were
exactly.
conceived on birth control. All 4 of my children were meant to be here.
I'm not saying that they're not. I love kids, but here goes my whole thing. If you knew he didn't have a job and he was just this guy who just can't keep a job, what would be the point of having children with him then if you know you're going to feel that way? And if you know he can't keep a job, how are you going to expect to get child support out of him on a continuous basis? So to me, the most important thing are your children, right? And
Absolutely.
I believe so.
That's
So
why I left.
the most important thing should be him being able to see those children and be around those children, because it's important that a father is around his children. That's important.
He has been given ample opportunities. Like I said, I bought him a plane ticket to come out here to see his son. He didn't show up.
Okay, I have a question for everybody. Our Tina says, my ex will not take these kids. What about a parent that just won't help at all? Because this happens. So
I'm raising my hand.
So let's talk about that, and we'll
Raising
go
my
around,
hand
and we can start with you, Brian, because you've actually said the least. What should happen to parents that just won't help?
That's their choice. Just like it's the choice of a woman to get an abortion or dump their baby off or anything like that. That's completely up to them. If they choose not to be a part of a child's life, that's their choice. You know, and to push on to the, you know, they could be drug addicts and alcoholics and all that stuff. You still chose to lay with them. You chose to have children. You chose to keep that child. You chose to be a single mother. That was your choice. That's how I look at it, you know. I mean, I have my own children. I have two kids with me, and I have two kids that I did pay child support for. You know, they're 12 and 13. I've seen them 4 times in 10 years, you know. But with child support, they suspended my license, put me in jail for a year, which is where I began to find out the truth while I was incarcerated. You know, they put all these penalties that keep me from getting a job. My credit is shot, you know, all that good stuff. But yet they still expect me to do it. But the way I look at it is, she made the choice. She chose to withhold my kids and violate the supposed court order for visitation. I was only, you know, I was court ordered first, third, and fifth weekend every month. You know, unsupervised visitations, all this jargon. They don't care. They're enforcing a contract. That's all it is. It's a debt collecting agency. That's it.
Okay, let me go to you, Destiny. What do you think should happen to a parent that just won't help?
So we were awarded, I think, according to the divorce review. By the way, Elena, our divorce actually happened in 2002. That's how long this battle's been going on. 2010 is when he won the money. Needless to say, in 2002, we were awarded every other weekend, as well as Father's Day and like children's birthdays from this time to this time. And I got them on Mother's Day and every other Christmas and every other Thanksgiving. He didn't do that. He didn't see them. He didn't come. He didn't call. He didn't care. He did not start caring until I filed a child support modification in 2010 when I found out he was getting this money. That's when everything kind of went backwards, period.
Okay, well,
Period.
what do you think should happen to somebody who don't want to be involved? Should there be a consequence? Brian said it should be up to the person. What do you think?
To me, there's his consequences he's facing every single day when he looks in the mirror at himself, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
I have never denied him the opportunity to see his children if he wanted to. Ever. Never denied him the opportunity. And to Brian, I just have to say that sometimes, even though I was on birth control with all 4 kids, there are some men that are extremely evil, and because you're married, do things to your wife. So that's neither here nor there. But
You chose to be there. You chose to stay there.
no.
I
I chose to be there because he would never let me leave with my children.
Why
Did he
you
hold
call
a gun to your head and chain you to the toilet?
Absolutely, that happened.
Did he
Why didn't you
hold a gun to your head and chain you to the toilet?
Absolutely, that happened.
You said you had a job though, and he wasn't working. So why
Did
didn't
you
you call
stay?
the police when you were at work?
What?
Why didn't you call the police when you were at work? You said he did not have a job. He didn't
He
work
was
for
with
years.
Most of
Why
the time,
didn't
the
you
kids
call
were with my parents.
Why didn't you call the police when you were at work?
Tried it.
And the police said what? They're not coming.
They went and there was no threat because I wasn't there. I was at work.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anthony, let me ask you, what should happen to a parent that just chooses not to help? Like RN Tina says, he just won't come get these kids. What happens in that situation?
Well, I agree with I believe in equality, and women have the right to choose. So I believe a man has the right to choose. And like she said, at the end of the day, when those kids are old enough, they'll come and talk to you, or they might not, or they'll come and talk to you, and they'll be like, "Hey, Dad, you wasn't around, and I'm not really feeling you, and you won't have a relationship with your children. And if you can live with that, hey, you can live with that." But I believe in equality. I believe in equality for all, and I believe that should be a man's choice. If a man does not want to deal with the situation, he shouldn't have to.
Okay, on that note, I gotta go, you guys, because my son just got home and I don't involve my kids in stuff like this. So, bye.
Okay.
Thanks for having
Bye.
me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Elena, let me ask you, what do you think should happen when one parent just can't get another parent involved?
Well, it is that other parent's prerogative. They will suffer the consequences from having children who absolutely despise them. And we as a society will suffer the consequences of angry children, abandoned children growing up and taking over this country. However, they should not be financially let off the hook because it takes two to make a child. It's supposed to take two to raise one, and it damn sure takes two to support one. Children aren't getting any cheaper.
Okay. And I see you down there, Anthony. I'm gonna let you go ahead and respond, but give me 1 second. I want to let everybody know that this is Soapbox Heroes. We are talking about child support, and RN Tina, FE Davis is she's going to contact you now and bring you in. So we're going to bring in one more person since one person just left, and she asked to come in. So we're going to grant you that question. Well, I won't call it a wish because I don't think you're wishing. And so yeah, go ahead, Anthony. You wanted to add
Okay, I
on?
just want to say now, like I said, there's a real high double standard in society, and it's ridiculous to me because, like I said before, a woman can take a child, stick him in a baby box, and walk away no problems. If you read some of the comments on my page, you will see where women come in those. When I posted those pictures, those videos about the women putting the kids in the baby boxes, you had women come in there saying, "Oh, she's overwhelmed. She did the right thing. She's giving the child an opportunity to have a nice home." And we don't really know that because some of these kids, they go to foster homes and go through hell, so they're not just guaranteed to end up in some $1 million house. So the thing is, when women want to abandon all responsibility, they have a right to do so. They can get an abortion, fire station, leave the child at the hospital, baby box, and they can walk away scot free. And you never hear society calling these women deadbeats, criminals. We should put ankle monitors on these women. You never hear none of that. But if a man decides, okay, look, this is too much for me, I don't want to deal with this, he's going to have to live with that. The same way how a woman is going to have to deal with it when she has an abortion or puts the child in the baby box. They'll probably think about that later on, like, maybe I shouldn't have put the child in the baby box and just walked away. But they can do that. And no one's harassing them for money. They don't have to pay child support. No one's just going in their check and taking money out. They walk away scot free. So I believe that a man should have a choice to walk away scot free without being a criminal, without having to pay any child support. He's going to have to live with that. He's going to have to live with that. What if the kid turns out to be LeBron James? You're going to have to live with that. Like, LeBron doesn't even talk about his dad. You never hear LeBron James talk about his father at all. He takes care of his mother. So if the kid turned out to be LeBron James, you're going to miss out on that too. So, at the end of the day, you look at athletes like Shaquille O'Neal. He had a stepfather Hopin, who was in the military and took care of him. And he even made a song about it back in the day, talking about how his father didn't bother. So at the end of the day, when you decide not to be a father, you're going to have to live with that in lots of different ways. But you should not be forced. If we believe in equality in this country, we believe in equality. You shouldn't be forced to pay child support for a child if you do not want to deal with the mother or the child.
Okay, so basically, what the guys are saying is the consequence should be that you just have to live with it. That should be the only consequence. If I decide I want to bring a child into this world, I don't want to take care of this child, and I don't want to deal with it. And so you're saying the only consequence I should have to deal with is the simple fact that I look in the mirror and I have to deal with it within myself. What about for guys who don't care? There's some guys who are just soulless. And what about the other parent who has to wield the weight of the burden solely by themselves?
They have a choice.
Yeah, they had a choice. They could have gotten an abortion. They could have been on the pill, the shot, all these different options that they had. They should have reevaluated, because a lot of these kids are unplanned. If you look at the black community, the statistics show that 70% of women who have children in the black community, for example, are unmarried. So at the end of the day, when you're in these relationships, you're going to have and you're having unprotected sex. That's liable to happen. So you need to make better decisions. That goes for men and women who you're having a child with. So if you have the child and you decide, hey, I don't want anything to do with that, you should have a choice. You should that's something that we should both talk about, or the man and the woman should talk about when that happens. Like, hey, I'm pregnant. Okay, well, look, I don't want anything to do with that. That's how it should go. So I believe that's how it should go.
All right, Elena, you have anything that you wanted to add?
Wow. Yeah. I'm a member of a Facebook page with almost
The other
55,000
one.
members. Over 80% of us were in long-term marriages. I had no idea until I was about a decade in that my ex-husband's problem with alcohol was turning into something that was affecting our entire family, including our very much planned and wanted children. Okay? I lost my marriage. My personal situation involved alcohol. There's many others who, it was adultery, it was drug abuse, it was just, couldn't get along, and bam, out the door goes dad. But that's over 80% of 55,000 people who had planned children. I can't go back. I can't go back and abort a 12-year-old. I can't dump my 12-year-old. If I tried to dump my 12-year-old, I'd be in jail. It's called neglect. It's called abandonment. It's called child abuse.
Okay, we have somebody who just added. How are you? This is Soapbox Heroes. You want to take a second to tell everybody who you are, and I'm going to ask you why your ex won't come and get the kids and what should happen. But go ahead and let us know who you are. We can't hear you. Maybe you have your phone muted. You can't hear me? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me, Elena?
I can hear you,
Yeah, I can hear you.
Tyrone, and
Anthony,
I see
Brian?
the new guest, but I don't hear her either.
Okay, we can see you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know sign language. We can't hear you. Unmute. Press unmute or turn up your volume. Effie, if you can, text her and let her know to turn up her volume. But here, let's go on to something else until we can get her opinion. Okay, my next question, and like I said, these questions were sent to me throughout the day, and I told people that I would ask the questions. When a non-custodial parent has the child for a whole summer, should the non-custodial parent still have to pay child support to the custodial parent when the custodial parent doesn't have the child? Let's start with you, Anthony. What do you think?
No, definitely not. You know, I feel like if the children are at the father's house, let's say all summer, he should not have to pay child support for the child. You know, that money could be spent on doing things with the child, the food at his house, with the child. So no, I do not believe a father should have to pay child support for for a child when the child is at his home.
Okay, Elena, let me ask you the same question. The non-custodial parent has the child for the summer. Should the non-custodial parent still be required to pay the custodial parent child support?
Oh, I agree with Anthony. No, that money needs to be spent on them having fun with the kids and the things that they need while they're at his house. Now, as long as there's no arrears. But yeah, if everything's cool, no. If the kids are at his house for the summer, yeah, they need to be going to, the theme park and having fun and going out to eat and doing all the things that you do with kids during the summer. And if they're not at the other parent's house, the other parent's water bill's going to go down, their light bill's going to go down. They're not going to have the same expenses because the kids aren't there. So that money needs to go with the kids.
All right, Christina, can you hear us now? We still can't hear you. Yeah, I don't know if you have your device on mute. Can you hear us? I don't know if she can hear us. Brian, should the non-custodial parent still pay child support to the custodial parent when the child is in the non-custodial parent's custody? Let's say the non-custodial parent has a child for the summer. Should the non-custodial parent still have to pay the custodial parent for that whole summer, the child support?
Oh, of course not. But I go deeper than that. I don't think anybody should pay child support to any child support agency, period. I think it should be handled in private between the man and the woman. That there shouldn't be any third-party agency involved whatsoever, period.
Okay. And Andre Smith says the custodial parent should pay support to the non-custodial parent while they're gone for the summer. What do you guys think about that?
Negative.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I agree with that. If the father's paying child support for 9 months out the year, if he's going to have the child for 3 months that whole time, then he should get child support. Yes. Or
Elena?
not have to pay. Or not have to pay.
Elena, what do you think?
If there's no income disparity, then yeah, I would agree with that. But typically the parent receiving child support is receiving that due to an income disparity even more than what the kids need. So I would say that would have to be based on the income percentages. But the custodial parent shouldn't receive the child support if the kids aren't there for 3 months. I mean, that's just not fair.
All right, Christina, are you there yet? Oh, we trying to get you. We just can't hear you. I would love to hear what you have to say, but just keep trying. Next question is, let's say both parents make the same amount of money. Both parents love the child equally. How is custody decided in those situations? Should custody automatically go to the woman because the woman was pregnant with the child? Or how do you come to a determination when all factors are close to even? They make close to the same amount of money. Both of them love the child the same. Both of them has been in the child's life for the same amount of time. Then who gets the child? Go ahead, Brian. Let's start with you.
How do you prove who loves the child more? How do you prove that? I mean, honestly. To me, it should be 50-50 right down the middle. It should be an agreement. There should be no, who makes more money. The whoever is in possession of the child should pay for everything. And then when the child goes to the other parent, that parent pays for everything while the child's in their custody. Nobody has to pay the other parent anything. So you determine what your child does, what it receives, what kind of clothes. I mean, there should be no money exchanged between parents unless it's like an extracurricular activity or something, that's only done at one parent's house. Those special circumstances, yes, sure. But other than that, there should be no payments distributed between two parents.
Okay. Well, what about if one parent if there's no courts involved, and one parent says, well, I'm going to keep the child and you can never see the child? How would you settle that if there's no courts involved?
I claim the property.
So what about the person that didn't claim the property?
Well, I guess they're out of luck. They should get educated, really.
All right. You got something you want to add, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the courts. I'm not a fan of the courts at all, but I do believe that they're needed, but they definitely need reform. And the reason why I say that is because what happens is, even though sometimes these court systems, they don't enforce the visitation in some situations, but I feel like it just keeps you from arguing, or someone, you guys might not agree on something, so now she has an attitude, so now she doesn't want you to see the child, or you can't get the child this week. I like the idea of having something organized and set up to where we know exactly what's going on, and I feel like it should be 50-50 custody right down the rip. And I agree with Brian. There shouldn't be any child support because, like we talked about before, when these women don't have money, no one's threatening them with jail. They can go down there, apply for Section 8, food stamps. No one's taking their driver's license when they don't have money, or they're in a tough situation. They get laid off, whatever the case may be. They're not just, no one is threatening them with trying to put them in jail. So I feel like it should be the same way for the man, equality. If a man isn't having in a financial bond, he should be able to get his children 50-50 custody, and he shouldn't be threatened with jail because, like I said already, when the women are struggling, when these mothers are struggling, they go down there, they apply for food stamps, cash assistance, Section 8. I mean, there's so many different things they can apply for that men can't, and no one is taking their driver's license, taking their passports. So I feel like that's how it should be done, 50-50 custody. And if the kids are what's really important, that's the way how it should be, 50-50 custody.
Okay. Elena, what do you think?
I would like to ask Anthony and Brian what their solution is when 50-50 won't work. Are you going to hand your 9-year-old over to somebody who's drunk 24 hours a day?
I mean, I feel like, that's not a situation that's all the time. Those are rare situations.
Not as rare as you want to make it out to be. Every single father I know who's got custody of his kids has custody because the mom's a drug addict. We're in the midst of an opioid crisis in this country. The whole drugs and drinking situation is not rare at all.
See, you just proved my point, though. You said every father that you know has the child because the mother is a drug addict. So you see what it takes for a man to get the children? The mother has to be all the way washed out for a father to be able to get the children. We men lose 90% of these custody cases. So you just proved my point. 90% of these women win custody, and you just proved my point because you said it yourself. Every man that you know has the custody because the mother is a drug addict. So you proved my point. Thank you.
All right, you guys, we got somebody new. Hold on 1 second, Brian. I'm gonna let you jump right in. Christina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys now.
Great, and we can hear you as well. So look, I'm gonna catch you up real quick.
Thank you.
I read your comment. What should happen if a parent doesn't want to be involved? If the non-custodial parent don't ever want to come and get these kids, what should happen?
I'm not sure. I don't feel like they should be jailed. I don't feel like he should go to jail for that. I don't feel like he should go to jail for owing money. I'm not sure what the proper consequences for that, besides what Anthony said, is karma. Um, my particular situation has evolved over time. I've been where Anthony is, I've been where Elaine is, I've been where Destiny is. I've been on all ends of the spectrum. And when we first started, we were married, children were planned. I already had one child, had two. We had two together. He worked the first 2 years, didn't work the last three. We ended up getting divorced. I was working, he wasn't. They tried to make me pay alimony. In exchange for that, we made a deal for a child support order, but the amount is zero. That was 11 years ago. He hasn't paid anything. I was on welfare, as Anthony said, for 2 years before I married him. I got my LVN license. I'm an RN now. I make way more money than him. As it is now, over the years, I've tried to get him to take half custody since he's not paying anything anyway. He always can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not in a position to do it. I'm not in a position to pay, but I'm not in a position to help. At this point, I decided for myself and for my kids, I don't care. If he wants to see them, I let him see them whenever he decides to pop up, because that little 10% out of 100, it means something to these kids. And I have to let go of being bitter and the fact that the state doesn't help, that I'm not going to get any compensation. I might never get any compensation. But what's better? Having a little peace for myself, letting these kids see their dad, or harping over the money that he can't pay. I'm not saying I'm not pissed. I'm just saying, I've kind of let it go. And like Anthony said, let karma do its thing.
That was the most beautiful thing I ever heard in my life.
Me too. Because the reason why I say that is because my father lived in Detroit. I'm originally from Detroit. And I seen my father like every other summer, and sometimes it might be, every 2 summers. I go to Detroit, I stay with my dad. My mother never complained about child support. Never complained about child support. And she never talked bad about my father. Never. I can't think of one time where I heard my mother say anything bad about my father. Not one time. And as I got older, I was able to figure out what was going on, and that he chased women. I got 9 brothers and sisters. So I figured that out on my own. But my mother never talked bad about my father. Never. So I feel like you have to let the child decide. You don't have to beat the child up with your opinion and have the child sounding like you and how you feel. The child will figure it out at his own point, at their own point. They'll figure it out. But my mother never complained about child support. And she was on welfare. She was on welfare for a while. But she never complained about child support or your dad's a deadbeat, he belongs in jail. My mother never said that. She never even went for child support. But she would take me, she would drive me to my dad's house and drop me off, and my dad would keep me for the summer. And I enjoyed those summers with my dad. So, I'm thankful that my mother didn't sit there and talk bad about him and having me feeling some type of way when I got there. But as I got older, when I got to about 16, 17 years old, I remember I started thinking to myself, like, man, this dude really wasn't around as much as he should have been. And, he should have been around a little bit more. And I was able to make that decision myself. And I was able to go talk to him about it myself. And I believe that's how it should be done, in my opinion. That's how it should be done. Sitting around, talking bad about the father, trying to prop yourself up as like a hero, because a child is going to be smart enough to see after a certain point, like, man, my mom is a good woman. She took care of me. She raised me. She did it all on her own. She did what she needed to do. And they're going to appreciate that. But if you're sitting around just beating up the father, I don't understand how that helps the child's self-esteem and where he's sitting there feeling, or he or she is sitting there feeling like, well, my dad doesn't love me. He's just a total deadbeat. That's going to give your child a low self-esteem, I believe, because they're sitting there wondering, well, why doesn't my dad want me? Why doesn't my dad want to be in my life? Why isn't he around? So to me, you're not helping your child when you sit around and you badmouth his dad. I'm not saying you got to make him out to be a hero. You don't have to say anything, But sitting around talking bad about him, I think it's just a bad idea. So that's just all I want to say.
Okay, let me ask you guys this. Watch, I'm going to do magic and watch the divide. Does family court favor the woman, Christina?
I'm gonna have to say yes. When I went to family court, it was part of divorce. I did have a lawyer, but I live in California. I don't know where you guys are from, but I live in California. And she told me, as far as custody goes, we got that in the bag. But like I told you, that alimony situation, she was like, this is California, and it's 50-50. So that's why I cut the deal. I've also had relationships with, men that have baby mamas, ex-wives, whatever. I don't know. It just seems like sometimes the dads get a raw deal, but in my situation, like I said, I have offered for him to help me with these kids 50-50, and he will not do it, even when I felt like he wasn't stable, just to prove a point, just to say, I need help. Like I said, I've been going to school all these years trying to pull myself up. So I want to say yes, just from my own experience, but I damn near want to say no because I've had no help over the last 10 years trying to collect the money, like Elena said. Like I'm kind of, not that I'm playing devil's advocate, but like I said, this has been involved over 10 years. So now I'm at a point, I don't have feelings. I'm not bitter. I'm not trying to get them back. This is just plain black and white. These kids cost money. Can you help? He's saying no, but he wants to see him sometimes. Well, hey.
Okay, Anthony, what do you think?
I just feel like when you if you get into a situation and you're trying to get the man locked up, I don't see how that helps your child, because if you get him locked up, he's going to use that as an excuse. Well, I couldn't be there because, your mom had me in jail all the time. So I feel like, the family courts definitely favor the mother, because in Ohio, I'm only going off Ohio because I've been through the whole system. The woman is guaranteed. When I went to go get visitation, they were acting like I was going for full custody, talking about what, she's in school over here, and, and making it like I was going for full, well, she's just comfortable over here. And I'm like, look, I'm just trying to get visitation. And I actually lost the first time I went to court because I didn't have a lawyer. I thought, I can go in there. I did some goofy stuff though. I wasn't reading. I didn't handle my business properly, so I will take some responsibility on that. Because they were trying to get me to do a guardian ad litem, and the guardian ad litem is I don't know if everybody knows this, but the guardian ad litem is a hand-picked lawyer by the system for the child, and they make you pay for it. So, me being ignorant, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't reading, and I wasn't watching videos or learning anything. I'm thinking like, well, there's no way in hell they're gonna stop a father. I pay child support, so there's no way in hell they're gonna stop a father from getting his visitation, is what I believed at the time. But since I didn't do that guardian ad litem, they said that didn't help my case when I got my lawyer. My lawyer was like, yeah, you should have did the guardian ad litem, just paid the money. But I'm like, why do I gotta pay you guys $1,000 to have a lawyer investigate me? So, I was just irritated with it, and I thought, well, they'll at least give me some type of supervised visitation or something, and then I'll be able to get, my rights after that. But they denied me everything. So then I got a lawyer, and now my situation is looking better with my daughter. But, the courts definitely favor the women. 90% of cases are won by the woman. And like Elena said, every father she knows has custody because the mother is a drug addict. So, I sometimes I think maybe I should have had a kid with a drug addict so I could have got my rights. But, my kid's mother's not a drug addict. I didn't get it. I didn't get that. You know what I mean? So I had to battle. So I feel like the courts are definitely unfair, and that needs to be reformed, period. So yes, I definitely believe that they favor the women.
Okay, Elena, You want to break it down? What do you think? Do you think that the courts favor the women?
Not at all. And in fact, Lilia Luciano of ABC News out in California is doing a huge expose on family courts and how they are ripping children away from protective parents and placing them with abusers. And the stats are there. The stats back up my statement. Um, you know, yes, the single fathers that I know, I have interviewed multiple of them, Anthony, and featured their stories on my blog. But they had to fight like hell to get these kids away from an abusive situation. It's just ridiculous. But then in Texas, a father's rights state, I had to fight like hell to go from being a stay-at-home mom to having custody of my kids. I wanted my ex to have supervised custody because of his alcoholism. When I had it documented that this man almost burned the house down drunk with our kids asleep upstairs, police reports, security company reports, fire department reports, had him pulled over driving drunk with the kids, police reports, again, dash cam video, and it bankrupted me to just get supervised visits that he won't do because he doesn't need to be supervised when he's around his own children, even though he almost killed them a couple of times. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is not me versus you. This is about these kids. These kids have rights, and part of their right is to physical and psychological safety, and that's with the best parent. Maybe that sounds politically incorrect. I don't really give a damn. It's true because these kids have a right to be safe, and they have a right to be supported. So, yeah, family courts with their lack of oversight, the whole thing just needs to be nuked. And the IVD system is the most corrupt damn thing going on in America today. It's a cash cow for the states. Children are suffering. This is how we treat children in America. We all need to move.
Brian, what about you? What do you think? Do you think women are favored when it comes to family court?
I know for a fact they're favored when it comes to family court. Here in Texas, it's a 90% rate. 10% of fathers have full custody. My dad happens to be one of those fathers. And he managed to get full custody of me and my two sisters, no sweat. And my older sister from another relationship. He managed to pull it off because he knew the system. That's what it is. And that's all it is. It's a giant game. You have the right to your children. But if men are not educated and they're hiring these attorneys, they're going to get slammed every time. And even if you are educated, if you are educated, you're not going to hire an attorney, number one. Number two, if you're not educated, you're going to get railroaded. So, that's just what it comes down to. But they definitely favor women because statistically, men have more dangerous jobs, and we're just going to say it. Men get paid more than women. We're not going to lie. But that's because we work harder jobs. We do more dangerous stuff. On average, we make more money, which means more money that they can take. The more money you make, the more they can take. The more they can take, the more they profit from. It's a system. That's why there's such a high rate. That's why they favor the women, because if we give the kids to the women, we can tax the men. The men have bigger paychecks. But in my case with my dad, he got custody of us mainly because I was abused as a child, my mom. And he even had a female judge, I was taken to a babysitter's house by my mom. The babysitter's husband beat my ass with a curtain rod till I was black and blue from my neck to my ankles. It was a slam dunk case. I don't even know if she appeared in court, but she was put on child support. The woman owes over $100K in child support. Ain't never seen a courtroom. Has a valid driver's license. Never had her passport suspended. My own mother did that. Didn't show up in my life. I thought she was dead till I was 16. But, did she ever suffer any penalties? No, she was a damn RNA or a certified nurse's assistant or something, She worked at a nursing home. She had a good job, made great money, didn't send a dime, not a Christmas card, no nothing. Did she get penalized? No. Of course they favor the women. My mom's walking around scot-free living on prison property, government property, state property, and they won't even touch her. and she's up over $100K. She owes what, 80 something thousand dollars for me and my two sisters, plus 3 other children from another marriage. She's up to 80,000. I mean, she hadn't been touched.
All right,
So
you guys
go ahead.
go
To
ahead,
answer the
Brian.
question, yes, it completely favors the women. To answer the question, yes.
Okay, anybody has something they want to add to that?
Well, it seems like
I'm currently dealing with a case. Excuse me, Christina. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm dealing with a case out of Massachusetts where the ex-spouse owes over $500,000. He's sitting on the Vegas Strip right now, running a store, and Massachusetts won't touch him. Nevada won't touch him. One of the reasons that he owes that much money is because he earns that much money, and because when trying to just extend a restraining order, the judge looked at the preponderance of evidence and granted a lifetime restraining order against him for the abuse he perpetrated against his ex-wife and his 2 sons. But yet, once every few months, he'll send $32. This woman and her 2 special needs children who grew up being beaten, just as you described, are now fixing to be out on their streets homeless. And their father's a millionaire. He hadn't been touched. And
But knowing,
yeah,
but
I'm
knowing
sorry,
what,
Chris. Go ahead.
but knowing what I know now in my mother's situation, I understand why she never paid. And you know what? It was completely her choice. She didn't have to. My dad was never on welfare, any type of government assistance, and that's the jurisdiction of child support, is the recovery of Title IV-A loans. That's their only jurisdiction. If there's no Title IV-A loans, they have no jurisdiction. And if there is Title IV-A loans, that application, that contract that you signed, you were required to give the other person's name, birthday, social security number, place of employment, and their address. The use of someone's personal information without their permission to receive benefits is the definition of identity theft. And every single person who's ever filed for child support more than likely could probably be prosecuted if they chose to go that route. Because my proof is going to be the contract with my personal information and your signature. That's my evidence that I'm going to use against you.
Okay, go ahead, Christina. I know you've been itching to jump in.
Because I think, of course, all of our experiences and our opinions on this matter are tainted by the outcomes that we got. Elena's outlook on things that need to be changed seems like it's based on her personal situation. Anthony and Brian as well, and me too. I feel like I've been in all of your shoes at one time or another. No, I've never had to pay child support, but I feel like I've been through all these stages that you guys are talking about. Like I said, I was on the county for 2 years. My first child is not by my ex-husband. I did what I had to do on the county. I had a good job that I had to let go because this man told me, like Brian was saying, you chose not to have an abortion. This is your baby. Got it. So I said, what am I going to do? I need to go to school. So I ended up getting on the county. Like I said, I pushed myself through school. Now, that person, he does still owe child support for our first child. He ended up taking out a loan and he paid it all off. So he just pays the month for my 16-year-old. He now is unemployed, actually, and my 16-year-old has a job. That's funny. So anyway, my other 2 children are by my ex-husband. Now, like I said, when we first got divorced, I was pissed. I was after blood. I wanted that money. I wanted him to be miserable. And I can say this now, looking back. I wanted him to be miserable. I was pissed because he left me with those kids, by myself, and he's out living his life, and I'm going to school and trying to make it happen. Yeah, I was pissed, and I wanted him to help, and I needed help, Anthony. It wasn't that I wasn't able to manage my money and not feed my kids. You do need a little help. Shit costs money, So over the years, like I said, it's been 11 years. I haven't got anything through the state from him. Every now and then he'll send a little money. Well, recently, within the last 5 years, he got in a relationship and he lives a nice lifestyle. Well, you know what that did, right? Pissed me off. So at one point, I wanted to take him back to child support to get that zero judgment changed. But it was a lot of hassle, Elena. There was no help for me. So that's why I'm in my situation now. I had to just make a choice. for peace. And then end up, like I said, karma. I've been blessed. I've been able to get job after job. I make great money now. I got my kids in sports, stuff like that. My daughter just went to a camp that was $500. Do I ask him for half of that? That's my choice. No. Now, when I told him about it, he said, hey, let me try to see if I can give you $200. Because like I said, I stopped giving him hell about this stuff. I just did. I realized that I'm not going to get any help from the state. And if he's going to give you what he can, that's fine. The kids are 11, 12, and 16. You know what I'm saying? So they're able to make their own judgments. I did let them go with him for Christmas for 2 weeks up north. One thing I know about him is that he ain't going to let nothing happen to those kids. While he might not be responsible with himself or his finances, nothing will happen to those kids. And I just had to let it happen. I just had to let it happen, whether I was getting child support or not. Things have happened where, men are sometimes hard on boys. He was real hard on my son. I didn't appreciate that. I didn't feel like it was abuse. Maybe it's cultural. I didn't feel like it was abuse. I felt like that's what he was doing as a dad. And I still entrusted him with the kids. My son had a birthday party on Saturday. I knew his dad couldn't, as he says, he can't afford to go. So, to set everything up, hey, I got your ticket already paid for. If you could just show up and mean 100,000 to the kid. He came. Shocked. Did I say, ooh, shock the hell out of me? No. Hey, what's up? Thanks for coming, blah, blah, blah. I'm just at that point. I've been the bitter baby mama, ex-wife, pissed. I've been going up to the child support office every week. I'm just past that at this point. Is it right for him to get away with, money owed? No. But sometimes you have to choose the hill you're going to die on.
Okay. Christina, let me ask you this. I heard you say that you were bitter.
Yes.
Most of the time when we hear about these things, nobody ever admits to being bitter, man or woman. Do you think that people are bitter more often than they admit?
I think so, because I know I was, and I didn't know I was. I thought I was just doing what I was supposed to do as far as pursuing him, giving him hell, not letting him see the kids, unless he paid me, things like that, until some years passed and I realized that I didn't love him anymore. Like, that I wasn't, because I was still in love with him. I was hurt. I was pissed off. And it took me a long time. It wasn't overnight, It took a while to realize, that I was bitter and I was poisoning myself with the hate that I had for him. And it took a lot. It took more energy to hate him than it did to go up to the child support office every week, And once I admitted that to myself, then I felt free. And I'm not trying to sell out all the ladies because, I'm just saying, I was pissed. I was bitter. I feel like now I'm not bitter. Sometimes I do get mad, when I think in retrospect, but I just, like I said, I gotta do what's best for these kids. I have a son and I have 2 daughters. And one thing I can say about my ex, my oldest daughter who was not by him, he's never discounted her. He's never said, well, talk to me about my 2. We ain't talking about her. If he has something to give, he gives for all 3. So, I just have to try to acknowledge some of those smaller efforts instead of being like, that ain't nothing. What is that? The $100 for 3 kids? I got to the point when I was like, well, thanks for that $100, it just is what it is. We got to a point where we could drink a beer together. It ain't all shits and giggles, but you just kind of come to a point. I don't want to fight that battle. He needs to be accountable, sure, but I feel like he's kind of paying for it in karma. When I see him, I feel like he's going through something. And like Brian said, that's his choice. And my choice is to just let things be the way they are. I'll work overtime to make ends meet. I'll work overtime to get these kids in, school clothes, all that kind of stuff that they need. That's what I do. I bust my butt. Because I'm not going to bust my butt going up to that office 15 times a day and get 0 results like I have for the 11 years. You just, I don't know. Like I said, choose the hill you want to die on.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah, that was. I definitely like the fact that you were honest, because I do believe a lot of these women are bitter. They're bitter. And
I'm bitter.
Use these, they use this child support agency as a way to.
Did you try to reconnect?
Yeah, I'm bitter. I'm definitely bitter. Ain't no doubt about that.
Okay, hold on one second, everybody. I got alerted that Elena needs to leave, and we are going to wrap it up here soon as well. So,
Okay.
Elena, do you want to say any parting words and any thoughts that you want to say before we leave?
Yeah, I would like to thank everybody else who was on tonight. And Christina, I agree with what you said. My children were in counseling due to my ex's alcoholism before we ever split up. And I was blessed at that time to be told by a counselor, don't ever talk bad about him because that's on you. That's not on him. You know, he will hang himself or he will fix this, but keep your nose out of it. So I thank God my ears were open and I heard that advice. I've never disparaged my ex to my kids. In fact, when they bring it up, I'm like, look, he's got a disease. He's sick. We need to pray for him. And then I'm like, if you need to continue to talk about him, you need to talk about it with your counselor, not me. Because I just don't go there. I don't go there. It's too much energy and it's too much negative energy. But it's these kids that are suffering for it. And Tyrone, I will say this: a couple months ago, I had the opportunity to interview how many was it? 5 older kids, and I did an article called "Out of the Mouths of Teens," and I had from 16 to 20-year-olds, 4 young men and 1 young lady, and the hurt and the pain that these kids deal with. And these aren't 50-50 kids. These are kids who have been abandoned by a true deadbeat. And, deadbeat is not a sexist term. A deadbeat can have boobs or balls. That's just the way it is. They come in both genders. But the pain and the anger that these kids feel from having been abandoned, physically, emotionally, and financially, it's horrifying. And we've all got to do everything we can to ensure that the next generation of kids, that they are leaders, that they are not angry, that they see both sides of every issue so they can take appropriate action towards it. This is, this isn't men versus women. Let's, whoop out the sabers and start sword fighting. This is about the kids. Family courts and IVD needs to be fixed because it's about the kids. And that's the bottom line. So on that note, Tyrone, I am going to say goodnight. I've got to be up at the crack of dawn. So I'm going to just again say thank you to the other panelists, and I hope we come back for a round 3 because I'd love to talk about this some more.
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you for coming. We really, really appreciate it, and have a wonderful evening. And anytime you want to come on and you have something to say, you already know you have the floor. And once again, we want to thank you guys. If everybody else has 1 second, I have one more question that I'm going to ask. But thank you, Elena. If you disappear, we know why.
Y'all have a good night.
You too. Have a good night.
You
Elena.
too.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Elena.
Bye-bye.
All right, you guys. I have one more thing I want to add in. Glenda Randolph Bates says 50-50 means 50-50 of everything. That includes homework, science project, field trips, church, sports, clubs, hygiene, parent-teacher conferences, school clothes, real everyday stuff. So when we're talking about 50-50 custody, are you guys talking about that included?
Yes,
everything. When it's split down the middle, right? Definitely.
I agree
All
with
right.
that too. If it's 50-50 custody, that's the way it should be. Especially if there's no child support involved, we should be able to, I should know when plays are going to be. I should be able to call the school myself directly. The father should be able to call the school direct. So he should get text messages from the school because they do that now with the schools. The father should be involved in every day-to-day situations. I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree, Christina?
Yeah, they need to help with everything.
Go
But
ahead,
like
Brian. I accidentally muted you. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead, Christina, then Brian.
yeah, I think they should help with everything. Like I said, in my ex's situation, I mean, he seems like he's financially strapped. So I have the kids in some things that do cost, more money than it probably should. So I'm not sure if he'd be able to do 50-50 with that. But like I said, at this point, if he can help me out with the time alone, no money, that'd be great.
All right. What you got anything you want to add, Brian?
Yes, 50-50 should be the status quo of it all. You should actually have to fight against 50-50 with proof. That's the whole point of what I do with the child support scam on Facebook, is that we fight for 50-50 because that's the way, you know.
You're cutting out.
I can't hear you, Brian. You cut out again.
Oh, you should have to fight for anything other than 50-50.
All right,
50-50.
everybody. Kind of technical issues. I'm watching the feed on Facebook and I see it looks clear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yep. 50-50 should be the standard. If you want something other than 50-50, you should have to prove it. You should have to provide evidence of a reason why there shouldn't be 50-50, why someone should get more custody than the other person. And that includes all the, the expenses that come with it. Down to the homework, the tampons, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. I know I only have sons, but my first two, I've only seen them 4 times in the last 10 years. 4 times, even though I'm supposedly court ordered for first, third, and fifth weekend every month unsupervised visitations. Doesn't matter how many, complaints that I file or anything like that. I don't even get that. So 50-50 to me would be hope and a prayer there. But, that should be definitely the standard, and you should have to fight for anything other than that. You should have to prove it in a court, an actual court, not a Title 4D hearing that doesn't involve judges. It's a single and separate unit, which is what we teach. We teach them exactly what it is, down to the law. We worry about laws. We take the feelings out of it. I mean, there is feelings, but the law doesn't care about your feelings, and not being familiar with the law and exactly what it is. And the whole thing about it is it's based off Title 42. Which is, it's not even positive law. All of child support is based off Title 42. So family law is based off Title 42, which is not positive law. It's a non-positive law title. All of the, that's the Medicaid and the food stamps and the welfare. I mean, we're being held to something that really it's punishing people to debtor's prison that's prohibited by the Constitution. And that's just what we want to do, is we just want to educate people, and show them that 50-50 by yourselves without the need of a third-party private business is the way to go. Deal with your children in private.
All right. Well, here, we're going to go around, give everybody a final word, and then we're going to go ahead and cut out. Let's start with you, Anthony. We'll let you go. We'll let Brian go, and then we'll end it with you, Christina.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say, thank you, Tyrone, for having me, and I want to thank everybody who came in and talked. And I hope Elena don't feel like we beat up on her too bad when she was here by herself for a little while.
She did well.
Yeah, she did well. She was holding her own.
She did well.
I just feel like if the children are going to come are the most important thing, we have to work on 50-50 custody. We have to figure out a way that parents have to figure out a way to get along with each other to make it where the kids can be the number one objective, and to make sure that the kids are going to be happy and have their mother and father in their life. I definitely would like to do a round 3 anytime. Just hit me up, and just want to say thanks.
Okay, and thank you as well. Brian, you got anything you want to close out and say? Oh yeah, Anthony, where can the people find you, and how can they check into your group?
My Facebook page is Child Support Reform USA. I have a private group. You can join that. And if you ever have any questions or anything, or just want to talk, just hit me up on the message board.
All right, cool. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, anytime that you want to do this again, please feel free. I thank all the panelists and everybody, and you can jump on my group over at the Child Support Scam on Facebook. It's a private group too. That's where we pretty much do the law. We're not attorneys or lawyers and no bar association, but we give you the facts that you can easily Google for yourself and find out to be true. It's real simple. But we compile everything into one nice little location where you can find it. It's very simple, and you just visit us over there if anybody has any questions.
All right, sounds good. And Christina, you want to give a final thought? And you do know that you're about to have 1,000 inboxes from men like, I'm in love with you. You know that, right?
Yeah.
It's not all sweet, It's like I said, it's been a process over quite some time. Like I said, 10 years, and it's where we are. I have my times, like I said, when I get upset. Sometimes things still bother me, but I just look at the bigger picture. I don't have a blog. I don't have a website. I'm just a regular, single mom out here trying to make it. I live humble. I live below my means, and I just bust my butt to make the money and help the kids out. And like I said, at this point, all I need from my ex is a little more time with these kids, for them and for me too, so I can have some mama time. And that would be great. And that's just where I am in my life right now.
All right. Well, thank you, Christina. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Brian. I want to say thank you to Elena. Thank you for Dwayne, who jumped in earlier. This is Soapbox Heroes. My name is Tyrone Irvin. This was Child Support number 2. If we do number 3, I'm going to need you guys to give me some questions. So I appreciate everybody for watching. We're not going to do the ads this week. We're going to work on them and have something special for next week. But I appreciate everybody for watching, everybody on their input. Again, I thank you guys so much because we're putting information out there and people are getting to see different views. Everybody's case is different, but we all want the best for our kids. And honesty and transparency is important, Christina. I think that's why so many people are going to identify with you, Anthony, and Brian. And so once again, thank you guys. This is Soapbox Heroes. We'll catch you guys later.
Catch you later.
Thank you, Thank you, Tyrone. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Oh, yeah. One more thing. Catch Tommy Israel tomorrow. He's going to do a sound off. He's going to sound off is 20 minutes of uninterrupted, saying what you want to say, and then you can leave comments and go back and forth then. But that's it. See you guys later.
See you later.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.